Notes just released the Captor X Plus, which is the new version of their highly popular Captor X reactive load or load box platform. I have it here behind me next to my ENGL Ravager IR tube amplifier. And I think it's a really cool reactive load because it addresses some of the issues that I had with the previous version. And we'll get into all of that. Now for the gear in this video, I'm using my Infinia Guitars series, a beautiful guitar. That is going into my ENGL Ravager IR back here on the lead channel for a nice chunky tone. That is being fed into the Captor X Plus and then into my DAW with 2 XLR cables for a stereo signal. And by the way, thanks so much to the folks at Notes for sending me this unit and for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. But of course, all thoughts and opinions stated in this video are 100% my own. Now, as I mentioned, I was a little bit critical about a certain aspect of the Captor X, so the previous version, and that is the impedance curve. Now, if you don't know what an impedance curve is, I recommend looking it up. It's a little bit technical, but there basically is an interaction between a tube amplifier head and a speaker, which has an effect on the tone. Basically, it adds some top end and some bottom end, and it changes the overall response and EQ curve of an amplifier. And a reactive load is supposed to emulate that. Now, the old impedance curve of the Captor X was a bit flat. It was too flat for my taste. And in comparison, a bunch of other reactive loads just sounded a bit more chunky in the lows, a bit more crispy up top. So I felt that that was a little bit lacking in the Captor X. Luckily, they've addressed that in the new Captor X Plus and then some. So they added a really cool feature, which I'll show you in a minute. And I'm just super excited about that feature because it was requested by me personally as well. And they listened. So that is great. It's always great when companies listen to our critiques and our wishes. So that's wonderful. I should also mention that when you buy a Captor X Plus, you get a lifetime license to Genome, their software, and you also get a bunch of free cabinets. So that is cool. Of course, the Captor X has a lot of, software functionality. You can use it on your computer, which is what I'm doing for this video with the computer editor. You can also control it on your phone via Bluetooth. So that is great. For this video, I'm sticking to the PC editor. So I have it connected to my computer via USB, and I can control it that way. And, the Captor X Plus allows you to load your own IRs. There are a bunch of cabinets loaded in. You can change the mics around and stuff. We'll take a look at all of that good stuff in a minute. So it's a very powerful and versatile platform, and it's also compact in comparison to some other reactive loads. So that's worth mentioning. Why did I go with the ENGL Ravager IR for this video? Well, it's a simple little amplifier with a limited amount of controls. There's a 3-band EQ, but there's no presence and no depth. So I wanted to show you guys how powerful the tone shaping options are in this new Captor X Plus and also in the software Torpedo Remote. So that's why I chose that amplifier. But it's a cool little chunky high gain tone. ENGL amplifiers always deliver, right? So let's take a look at the Torpedo Remote software on my PC over here. The interface is nice. It's easy to use. Some of their old software was a little bit clunky for my taste, but I really like the layout and how the overall software looks here. This is the main screen. Over here, you can choose your cabinets. Now, the Notes library is very vast. So there are so many cabinets to choose from that you can purchase a la carte, if you know what I mean. I have a bunch of them, not nearly all of them, but I have some of them. Right now I have an ENGL cabinet loaded up, a 4x12 with 2 mics, so a 57 and a 121. But there are so many options that you can choose from here. So yeah, this is like the virtual cabinet section. And then over here we have some post EQ that you can add to each mic individually and some output effects, which we'll get into as well. Over here we have the mic balance and mic selection menus. And then the virtual load shaper, which is the new feature that I'm the most excited about. noise gate, and an output section over here. And the output section over here has some controls that you also have on the unit itself. So these 3 buttons are also on the front panel of the Capture X. So you can change the output level, this voicing control, this space control as well. Now we're going to start with the most exciting thing, the virtual load shaper, which basically allows you to either choose an impedance curve that is pre-loaded into here or to tweak your own with the custom mode. So that is great. I don't know of any other reactive load on the market that allows you to do that digitally. Now I did ask Notes about the technology behind this, since all the other reactive loads that I'm aware of do this in the hardware, so in the analog realm, if you will, whereas the Notes Captor X Plus does this in the digital realm. So this is what they said, and I'll quote them. Our new virtual load shaper in the Captor X Plus was developed using a proprietary algorithm, taking into account both the dynamic response of amplifiers when connected to different load conditions and the specific hardware characteristics of the Captor X Plus's internal reactive load. Accurately reproducing these behaviors required extensive modeling and validation to ensure that the amplifier responds and feels authentic under real-world conditions. Now, I don't know if they had to adjust the hardware, so I'm not sure if the hardware of the Captor X Plus is the same as the old Captor X. I have no idea. They did mention something about having to update an SKU. I don't even know what that is, but anyway, this is what they said. In any case, I think it's a great feature, and it makes this reactive load very flexible, perhaps even more flexible than any other reactive load on the market. Okay, so the virtual load shaper, which we have over here. Right now I have it set to the bold setting, and again, it sounds like this. Let's try a couple other presets. This is how the old Captor X sounded. It sounds pretty flat in the low end and in the top end, right? A bit too flat for my taste. This is how the Reload 2 by Notes apparently sounds. Vintage, which might be a cabinet with greenbacks. That's nice and chunky and nice and bright up top. Modern, which is a bit more tight sounding. That might be like a Mesa Boogie 4x12 or something. Bright, which is very bright. I don't know when anybody would want to use that. And then back to bold. So there are some presets in here. They could add more. So I think this is a great opportunity for them to add a bunch more. Impedance curves of various other cabinets would be great. We have the system now. Let's add some more. I would also like to see a drop-down menu rather than having to scroll through the different curves like this. But, you know, I'm basically nitpicking here. All right, now let's take a look at the custom mode, which allows you to customize the impedance curve. Let's turn that on. And as you can see, I have some settings right now that are quite similar to the bold setting. So what you can do here is change the gain of the low-end resonance, change the frequency, and also change the Q. So make it a bit more narrow and tight, or a bit wider and more fat, right? So that's cool. And then you can add some presence up top and also change the frequency. All right, so that is really nice, really nice. Let's mess around with these settings real quick. Let's mess with the low-end resonance first. Let's crank it up all the way. That's off, so that is not really pleasing. Let's lower the frequency a bit, make the Q a bit wider. Add some presence up top. So I really like how this software allows you to customize the sound of your impedance curve. Again, quite a powerful feature. I would like to see some frequencies here. So, you know, there's just a percentage here. It doesn't tell you if this is 100 Hertz or 120 Hertz or anything like that. I think if you want to copy some pre-existing impedance curves that you found online or something, it would be useful to have frequencies either here or here so that you know which frequencies you are changing. So that's just like a personal little gripe. But again, I love this feature. For big and fat sound, make the Q wider or make it more narrow for a tight sound. So yeah, I like it a lot. It's simple, but it does the job, right? That is very cool. All right, on to the next feature, the noise gate. Does what it says on the tin. This amp does not have a noise gate, so this is very useful for getting rid of noise. And of course, there's a learn feature as well that you can use so that it detects where the noise is, at which level, and then it mutes it. All right. Really cool. All right. Now again, over here you can choose the cabinet. I have the ENGL Pro 30 loaded up. And then with these settings over here, you can change the microphone. So right now I have a Ribbon 121 loaded up, as well as a Dynamic 57. You can change the axis, which will make it sound brighter or darker. But I'm going for a nice and forward sound, so I'm putting that to 0%. You can go to the back of the speaker. And this is for each of the individual mics, right? You can change the distance of the microphone. And of course, pan each mic individually. So let's try that. So you can send one mic to one XLR and the other to the other XLR, which can either give you like a wide stereo sound, or you can send each mic to a different source. So that can be very useful for like live settings and stuff. And of course, you can also mute one of the mics, put it to bypass, or put it out of phase. All right. You can also change the mics. So this is Dynamic 421. Let's scroll through the different mics that are available. So yeah, you can really go in and tweak the sound to your liking. Let's go for another cabinet just to, you know, try something else. And I'd like to go with the Orange PPC 212. Completely different sound, but it sounds great, right? Now over here in the output section, you can change the level of the entire signal, change the signal to dual mono or stereo. We're just going to stick with stereo for now, but it's great that you can do that as well. And then over here we have the output control, which is also on the hardware unit. The voicing control, which is kind of like a scoop control. So if you tweak it clockwise, it scoops the sound. And counterclockwise makes it more MIDI. So you can kind of tweak the impedance curve kinda with that. So I guess that's what it's initially intended for. So that's cool. And then the space controls the reverb, which I had off just before tweaking it. All right. For each mic, you have an EQ with some simple frequencies over here. Let's go to mic B, which is the 57, and then add some 800, for example. Or scoop it. You know, the frequencies are fixed for the guitar mode. Bass has different frequencies, and with custom you can change the frequency. So it's a quite powerful EQ that you can use to shape the tone of your mic signal a little bit further. So that's nice, right? And you can do that for each mic individually, since there are 2 mics. Now the output effects can be quite useful as well. We have this enhancer effect over here. You can use that to tweak the bottom and top end a little bit further as well. And we have this dry wet control. Let's put it to around 50% and add some thickness and brilliance. Body basically controls the mid-range, and brilliance, of course, the top end. So that gives you even more control over those areas in the frequency spectrum. Quite cool. I prefer dry, you know, without that effect on, but it's there if you want it. Reverb with various, you know, modes. This is Studio A. Let's make it a little bit more obvious. So that's nice and roomy. Let's try something bigger, like a hall. That's more suited for clean tones and stuff. For me, I like the studio, you know, and with some subtle settings. Just to make it sound a little bit more as if the cabinet is in an actual room. But let's turn that off for now. Then we also have the twin tracker, which makes the stereo signal very wide. Take a listen. You can tweak it a little bit with this balance control to lean it towards one side or the other. And then with the tightness control, you can control how tight it is. So counterclockwise is a little bit looser and less tight, obviously. Really nice, especially if you're like a single guitar player in a band. This can be very useful to make your sound massive on stage. All right, so those are the post effects and everything, and the controls for the cabinet and the mics and the virtual load shaper. Let's take a quick look at some other features. So we have an IR loader. I have some IRs loaded up. So in the IR manager, you can load some IRs into the unit itself. These are some IRs from my own web store. So the top one over here is the Heyday, which is based on a Hesu Demon speaker. And the bottom one is the Carney, which is based on an Eminence Carnivore. And this is how that blend sounds. That sounds awesome. And of course, you can also customize the virtual load shaper with your own IRs. We have a cabinet manager. You can select which cabinets are loaded into the unit itself, preset manager, etc., etc. So a bunch of features, right? Now, I really like the new Notes Captor X Plus. I think they did an amazing job with it, especially the virtual load shaper, which really changes how I view this platform. As I mentioned, before they added this feature, this wasn't my favorite load because of the flat impedance curve sound. But this makes it so much more flexible. Not only does it sound better, but you can customize it. So you can change it to your liking, which is really powerful. And I think they did a really great job with that. Again, what I'd like to see is more preloadable impedance curves and also some frequencies so that we know which frequencies we are changing. But perhaps beggars can't be choosers. I'm already just very happy to see this feature implemented. So again, great job to Notes. Of course, let me know your thoughts as well regarding the Captor X Plus. I'd love to know. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Also be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons as that really helps the channel out. If you want to support this channel, you can also follow me, of course, on Facebook and Instagram. Get something at my affiliate links for Thomann and Sweetwater. Like a new Captor X Plus, I'll put links in the description below. And if you want to support this channel directly, you can get something in my web store. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers.